Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Today's edition of Ask a Leopard Owner takes us to Dave and Beth on the Leopard 45 Catamaran. Before introducing Dave and Beth, I want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Chris, and in addition to having owned a Leopard 45 myself, I get to work with members of the Leopard community, helping to share their stories of adventure, curiosity, and exploration on their Leopard. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Today's session is being recorded and will be published on leopardcatamarans.com in the coming days. In other words, don't worry about writing everything down. You'll receive an email to this video once it's published. To submit your questions at any point today, go ahead and click the Q&A button at the bottom of this screen. We'll do our best to answer all of your questions, but if we run out of time, we'll share an email address at the end to submit any unanswered questions. And lastly, there's a 2-question survey that will pop up after we wrap up today. We'd love your feedback so we can learn what you liked and things that we could do better in future editions. With that out of the way, let's take a quick look at what we're going to cover. First, we'll learn about Dave, Beth, and Landon and their journey to get where they are today, why they chose a Leopard, what life is like on a boat, what they wish they knew before they started this journey, and then discussion and Q&A at the end. So I want to take a moment to welcome you guys. You're on the other side of the earth than most of us, and actually doing the things that we all dream about when we buy a sailboat and you're sailing around the world and currently in the South Pacific. So welcome, and tell us a little bit about where you are and what we can expect.
Hey, Chris, thank you so much for having us on. Just a housekeeping thing. Our video won't start if you want us to do that. So
okay. No problem.
Yeah.
You see lots of pictures of what you guys look like, but yeah, and the YouTube channel to live through you. So
yeah,
no problem.
No, so yeah, thanks for having us. We're Leopard owners from January of 2023. Yeah. And we are currently in French Polynesia, the Society Islands, actually an island called Wahine, Wahine, home of the Moana movie, apparently. But and then we'll be heading toward Bora Bora in the coming days, and then eventually, if we get the right weather window, over to Tonga. So with the goal of ending up in Australia or New Zealand by the end of the year. But so it's just the 3 of us on the boat with our daughter Landon, who's 16, and I guess we'll get into all of that in just a bit.
Awesome, great. And I think the next slide is an animation of your journey. So I'll mute the sound that plays here, but walk us through, I guess, what we're seeing on this video.
Yeah, it's just really our sail through the Caribbean and all the way to Grenada, and then we took the less traveled path from Curacao over to Panama. We did stop in Galapagos, so I know a lot of people have questions about Galapagos, and happy to answer those. And then we did a 20-day sail over to the Marquesas Islands. We went to the Tuamotus, which are amazing. If you've seen the movie Kon-Tiki or read the book Kon-Tiki. And then ended up in the Society Islands, which where we are now. So that's about a little over 7,500 nautical miles.
Amazing. So if you started, kind of looking ahead and where you started, was this always part of the plan, or did it evolve over time? Are you surprised on where you ended up, however many months into the journey?
It's always been part of the plan, honestly. When we were in the Caribbean, I think the Caribbean tends to lull you into this idea that 3-day sails, 5-day sails are pretty tough. So maybe I don't want to do this big long sail to in the South Pacific. And so we kind of hesitated for a moment. We have a good friend of ours who we sailed with on our first boat, and it was something we talked about all the time. And and so but we finally pulled the trigger and said, if we don't do it now, we're probably not going to do it. And so but it was always our dream to circumnavigate. And we always said, we'll just take 1 year at a time and see how far we get.
I love it. I also have that dream of saying I want to sail around the world. Bought a boat, ended up doing East Coast, Bahamas, and up to Maine and all that, and amazing. And there's, especially with the Bahamas so close to Florida, easy to get to, plenty of islands to see. But you guys are actually doing it, which is amazing.
Well,
Uh,
ironically, a lot of people we have met say some of their favorite sailing is East Coast of the U.S. So, and they've been around the
yeah.
world. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. All right. So I didn't miss much, which is great.
Right.
I feel like I did, but tell us a little bit about why this lifestyle. It's not it's not the easiest thing to do. Give us a little bit of background on that.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a 20-year dream of ours. Beth and I started sailing when we lived in Texas in the Gulf. We go to the charters and we did the charter thing like most people do in the BVIs. And we loved the idea of being on the boat. It's certainly dramatically different than a charter experience, what we're doing now, but it's what got our appetite wet for doing it. The one thing that we noticed, even in a 10-day charter, is that time kind of stood still on a boat. Like our family unit was together and we just had shared so many adventures and memories and everything, and the 10 days felt like a month. And so we just had this incredible experience together as a family and with friends. It says choose experience over things. We decided a long time ago that we were going to stop kind of giving gifts for Christmas and those type of things, because those gifts would last for a month or whatever,
Right.
and then they would be put to the side. And we decided to start giving experiences, and we go to concerts or plays or vacations, and so this is the ultimate experience for us, right? And what we're doing right now.
Do you have any reason? So I have had similar experiences just in terms of how fast or slow, actually, how slow time goes on a boat. Any idea as to what goes into that? What's the reason?
Yeah, I think there's less distraction. Like you're not running your errands every day. You're not hopefully online every day, though Starlink is kind of
Hating that.
a double-edged sword there. But
Mhm.
and so I think you're focused on the day. You're not focused on the future, you're focused on the now. And what can we do today? Can we go diving today? Can we go to the baths today, or whatever it might be, right? And so you're more focused in the now and without all the distractions, right? And you're purposely going out and seeking those adventures. Like, I mean, that the third picture over here is in the Galapagos with the giant turtles, right? And then the picture that the waterfall is in Wapu, that we hiked up to and kind of found this lagoon with some buddy boats and jumped in. So it's those type of experiences that are going to be ingrained in our daughter's mind, hopefully forever. And then maybe one day she'll decide to do this on her own.
So it's a great segue in terms of how you got here and the decisions that led to this. T Walk us through the images and the story on this slide.
Yeah, so I was pointing to Beth to see if she wanted to do this particular slide. This is a bit of a an emotional slide for us. In Let's see, we set sail. We bought our first boat. It was a Fountain Peugeot Estrella 42 in March of. Well, I'm sorry. We departed Florida May 5th of 2022. 15 days later, 13 days later, we arrived in Georgetown. We were with a buddy boat of ours, just one of our just favorite people in the world. And we had a fire on the boat. It killed our two dogs, sank the boat, and it just changed our course dramatically. We went from a dream of sailing around the world and starting out renting out our house for 7 years, selling all our things, and everything we owned was on this boat, and it sank and burned down within 18 days or 13 days of heading out. So
Life looks a little different when all you have is a t-shirt, shorts, and
yeah.
flip-flops each, right? I mean, that was literally the extent of what we were left with.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for, and I think we talk about this a little bit later, but the community of sailors, we stayed on our buddy boat that night, and I think his wife gave me a t-shirt, and I was wearing some other man's underwear. It was just very surreal because we had nothing. And the people in the Bahamas were amazing, and yeah, so it was just it was a freak accident. A lot of people ask us how it happened. We honestly can't say because of just some litigation issues. But it was just a freak accident that we move on from. And
But it was like any natural disaster or anything that happens, people come together and you see the best side of humanity. And that was a beautiful thing for us, wasn't it? I mean, honestly, you don't even know what you need at that moment. You're just still so overwhelmed. Everything is so raw in the moment. And people just showed up with all kinds of things that we couldn't even have anticipated. So it just touched our lives, and it's been something that we are forever grateful, and obviously try to pass that on whenever that has happened. We've run into people that have had things happen since then. So
yeah,
Most
and
people,
so go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna to add, a lot of people I think would walk away from the experience, and I appreciate you being open and sharing. I feel a lot of people would walk away from the experience that you all had and say, you know what, we gave it a go, sailing stuff harder than we thought, and obviously the really unfortunate event that you're talking about now. Most people walk away and say, all right, let's try something else. But you guys stuck with it. Was
we
it?
had a lot. Oh, go
Yeah.
ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just to walk me through I guess the reasoning for that. And I imagine at some point in the future, did you ever have a magical moment on the journey you're on now and say, I'm so glad we stuck with it because of, whatever your family is experiencing, or a great moment together watching the sun come up in the middle of the ocean? Like when was that moment of like, oh yeah, I'm glad we pushed through?
Well, the first moment was on day 14, right? When we
Wow.
superseded last journey, we were like, "Well, this is awesome! Oh my goodness!" But we obviously got past Georgetown too. That was the destination. But I think
Yeah.
multiple times. It wasn't really one time. There are sometimes we still pinch ourselves and say, "This is our lifestyle. This is When we were in the Caribbean, we had so many people who said, "Oh, we started out and that was our goal, but we've kind of gotten comfortable here, and so we don't really
Hmm.
see a need to go further." And we did not want that to be our story, because you can see how easily that would happen. There's so much to see
Yeah,
and do
100%.
there, and the sailing is a lot easier. You know, managing your boat, but we had already built the boat out for this, for ocean crossings. And so we had people caution us, to be honest, when we went home and they heard that we were still considering going again. They're, please, why would you do this to yourselves again? And we thought, it may have killed our dogs. It didn't kill our dream. We still have our eye on the prize. You know, and I think you had a moment, Davo, where you
Yeah,
thought
I mean,
about,
I remember sitting on our buddy's boat, watching our boat burn and sink into the ocean, and I was literally crying, and I was like, I don't think I can do this again. I mean, you know, and I think a lot of people would appreciate this. You spend so much time planning your boat and making it as safe as possible. And I was like, man, I failed at keeping my family safe. Um, and so it was a very emotional moment for me, for sure. And just thank God, nobody got hurt, either on our boat or any other boats. And just again, thanks for the people around us. But I remember our sail from Grenada to Bonaire was just magical. It was actually a motor because the wind was just
Hmm.
dead. The water was just glass, and the sunset, and I don't know, it was just this perfect, Beth was laying out front reading their book, and I was like, yeah, this is why we're doing this. And it was just a perfect moment.
Yeah. But walk us through some of the images on this slide. I think this further encapsulates your decision to stick with it.
Yeah, it does for sure. There's the picture on the left there is when we were we were at one of the islands,
Morea,
Maria, with, in one of the famous
right outside of
islands next
Tahiti.
to, yeah, Tahiti. And We participated in the Rendezvous, which if you come this way is a huge, well, it's such a huge, but a popular event where you sail from Tahiti over to Moorea. It's about a 5-hour sail. And then when you get there, you participate in some local activities. There's some, dances, and this is where our daughter and Beth and myself, with the local dancers and stuff. But it was probably our favorite day
Thus
so
far, yeah.
far, just because of it's what you think of when you want to do this journey around the world, is experiencing different cultures, different events, different people. It's just a beautiful setting. And in Land and our daughter, I should have put these slides side by side, but we have this exact same picture of her in the middle, probably when she was 3 or 4 years old, sitting on the bow of a boat, I think a Leopard actually, in the BVI's, and it's her favorite place to sit and just and look for the animals and the dolphin, the plentiful dolphin that come by. And the last picture is, we have friends visit us every once in a while, and the guy that's with us here, Roy, he's one of my favorite people, our favorite people, who actually got me into sailing a long time ago. So
awesome. Some questions that have been popped into the chat here around, why a Leopard and performance. So here's the opportunity to start to dig into some of those distinctions. I remember the first boat show I went to, a bit overwhelmed. I think it was probably Miami 5 or 6 years ago, and you start to look at all these boats, and they're big, and they're all mostly made of fiberglass on the outside, so they're big and white, and they all have big mass, and it was a bit overwhelming. And then it's really tough until you spend a lot of time getting into the details of it. They all kind of look the same.
Right.
And then you start to realize the layout and floor plan, and some of the things that are unique to the boat that Robertson and Kane builds, and that Leopard and Moorings use for their businesses. So walk us through some of the things that stood out to you, and some of the things that you really like about the Leopard.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. We went to the Indianapolis Boat Show probably 5, 6 years in a row, and the boat we kept getting drawn back to was actually coincidentally a Leopard 45. We went and saw all the boats, from the ones that are completely out of our budget to the ones that are kind of all in that same range. And the thing that kept speaking to us was just the front porch feature for sure. But before we get into the favorite things, we just felt, now that we've had multiple boats and we've been on multiple boats, the construction just seems on the Leopard to be much more solid. It just has this feeling, from the fixtures to everything else, seems to have just much better quality. And look, I know some people have had some issues with their windows and stuff like that. We have not had any of that. I think, I think all production boats, I think all boats in general have problems, right? And yeah, I would not, we would always, I think, going forward, choose a Leopard for its comfort and its construction. It sails awesome. It's super comfortable for us. The other boat felt a little small. So the 45 is a perfect size for the 3 of us. Plus, when we have guests on board, we love the layout where the galley is at versus the lounging area. We love the lounge up top, which is,
we call it the Lido deck.
The Lido deck, yeah. And
we've got the promenade deck, the Lido deck, and that's a feature that not a lot of boats have.
Yeah.
So morning coffee is great if people want to come over in the evening. It can be sometimes a little hot in the mid part of the day. But morning and night, we use it all the time. And honestly, it's fun to have people over. I think there's enough spaces to divide and conquer. So when there are kids and adults, we even had animals on board, everybody can go to a different part of the boat, and you're not all right on top of each other. So we love to host people on land. So it has enabled us to do the same thing, and to bring a community, which is like an anchorage, I guess you'd say, invite people and say, hey, does anyone want to come over tonight at thus and such time for sundowners, or for the other night we just did a movie because we're here where Moana was supposedly the idea of the French Polynesian lifestyle. showing that to the world, what that was about. So we thought, oh my gosh. And we had people that didn't even have kids watching this animated movie with us, but it was fun. We popped popcorn, and again, speaks to the to the lifestyle
and the comfort of the boat, right?
and the comfort of the boat.
The last thing which I think is important is, I really think Leopard listens to their owners. Every year you see like a 45 come out. I think a lot of the improvements you see, or changes, I guess you see, are sometimes based on the feedback of owners. I see there's a couple of Facebook groups. We belong to the Leopard 45 group, and that group is amazing because we're all Leopard 45 owners. But I also think Leopard pays attention to that as well. And so I think that's just, I don't know if it's unique in the industry, but my observation is Leopard tends to pay more attention than most.
Well, we've had other people even say that. They're like, every year people, they have other, brands. Every year we say this, this, and this. If you would just make this small change, it would make our lives. And they said, here we are 15 years later, some of these salty sailors.
Don't say the same thing.
Same issue. So they kind of look at us and think, wow, they really have, because right now we're sailing with another Leopard 45, and we left one recently, and we all have different years, and we can even see the change, the slight changes in years, the varied years that we have. And so that you do appreciate that, right?
Yeah. And by the way, I mean, I think like that picture is of the two motos, and that's 3 leopards, really by coincidence. I think you see more leopards in the South Pacific of catamarans than you see any other boat. I would say maybe next is either Outremer or Fountain Peugeot. But by far, I think leopards are the most out here. And so in terms of like, favorite features that we like, the front door porch airflow is a game changer, I think, compared to our last boat. I hear all these brokers that are trying to sell the other boats criticize this feature. I hear other boat owners that have listened to the brokers criticize this feature because they're worried about, well, what if a rogue wave hits you, and yada yada. We've never been in that kind of weather. We've been in some heavy weather. We've been on head on to some rough seas, and have never ever seen that thing fill with water.
And take on a lot of water, but never fill.
And I know somebody did a study that they filled the whole thing up with water and then pulled the plugs on it and drained like in 45 seconds. To me, it's such a non-issue. It shouldn't even be talked about. But so many people bring it up as trying to distract from purchasing a Leopard that, I mean, obviously you've got to address it, but to me, this is one thing that is just a non-issue.
Well, the other huge thing we have too that I'll talk about is storage. We see a significant difference in the boat we had before and this one. Our hulls are just bilges, sorry, in the holes, and even up above are so deep that we're able to put so much, like a double layer, triple layer in some of them, of bins, and people can't believe it. They're like, well, how do you have so much stuff? There are things we've not bought since we left Florida over a year ago, like dry goods and different things. They're like, where do you put it? And we're like, here, come look. Davo can stand completely almost up and does get in there to do visual inspections. And so that's huge. In life on a boat, you just don't have a lot of places to put things. And so that we have really appreciated the fact that Leopard got creative with the way they, even the walls have cutouts.
Yeah. And by the way, one other comment on the front door feature. We have an awning that we put up to go when we're in an anchorage for a while that, goes over the front. It creates an entire another living space. And we have friends on other boats that don't have that front porch feature. The only reason they go up front is to drop the anchor. I mean, they're never up front, right? So for us, it creates
a third of the boat you can't use.
It creates a whole another room, for us, that we just love being up there, and so it makes the boat feel even much bigger than it does for other people that don't have this feature. So
two builds to the some of the design pieces that you guys called out. So anyone who goes to the Miami Boat Show, there's a awesome Leopard party, and I think they also throw one at Annapolis as well. But at the Miami show, it's an invitation goes to owners, and I'm sure anyone who's very interested in buying a boat could also attend. But you'll find Robertson and Kane engineers and product owners and product developers at the show for days talking to owners about what could be improved. Hey, if this was just, architected this way, or if this handle or window was different. So, but just giving you a proof point that there is this feedback loop, in addition to, listening in the forums and other places. So that's just one piece of information. And then the other one that's interesting, and this stood out in my mind when I was shopping for my Leopard 45, is that the evolution of the Leopard brand really started as Robertson and Kane building charter boats for the moorings and Sunsail. And people liked those boats so much that then they, started doing private yacht sales with the Leopard brand. But if you think about what you need to have any successful charter business, it's, one, a boat that's not going to break, and, that's built really well for people who might not go boating all the time. And then two, when things do need to be, maintenanced or, repaired, that it's easy to do, that you can do this easily with at any base around the world. So you have these like really spacious engine rooms to be able to do engine maintenance and thoughtfully design systems in the boat that's easy to maintain and do that, because of their origins really coming out of a charter business that, had an offshoot into private yacht sales. So
Yeah.
that to me was another, I'm like, oh, this is why this is like this. There's another kind of business reason behind this, which is
Yeah,
also
and
really
I can't echo that enough. I mean, like the layout of the Leopard, because it was designed around charter,
yeah.
you're right. It's so easy to access everything. I mean, literally everything, and which I know from other people's boats that we've been on is not the case at all. I mean, boat yoga is a real thing for sure. I mean, you're
Yes, it is.
you're certainly fitting in tight places, but the way Leopard does it is certainly far better.
I have a couple of questions. John wants to know performance. So you guys sounds like a loaded up boat. Not sure if you know how much you guys weigh when you're hauled, but if you do, sprinkle that in with the answer to the question I'm about to ask you. But let's say true wind speed, or even apparent wind speed of 20 knots. What's your speed through the water? Or your
Yeah,
speed
I don't know what we're doing exactly loaded, but you can imagine like we have goods for up to a month of travel.
Yeah.
All the tools on board that we think we need, plus all the scuba gear and scuba compressor and kite boards and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we're probably at, we're pushing the weight for sure, I think, probably. So when we have a apparent wind speed of like 20 knots and following seas, when we've got the parasailer up, we're doing probably around 9-10 knots with the parasailer. Which we've done 14, but that's just because we had some waves behind us. It's not something. It's not. I don't like to go bare knuckle down a wave too often, but
kind of exciting.
I mean, it's fun for sure. It's certainly fun if it's the right thing. But yeah. So I mean, the performance is when we're downwind sailing, it's and like I said, the parasailer's up. It's fantastic. Even at 45. 50 degrees. I mean, you can really sail very well up to about 45, I think, with just the regular sail plan up. At 20 knots with the regular sail plan up at at 60 degrees, we're doing 7 knots. So yeah, no, I think it's great.
Yeah, I've always thought of it as the perfect. There are boats that go faster. The trade-off is, of course, comfort, narrower hulls, all of these things that make the boat perform better. But now it's less of a sailing cruising cat. It's more of a performance. But this is what you tend to see in like Outremer's and things like that.
We have a lot of friends that are jealous. It's funny because we'll leave at the same time and they have the performance boats, and we're like, we'll see you there. There after you, but they're like, yeah, but we don't have any comfy spaces to go, or we don't. And we actually thought about that when we were planning. We're like, we could get there fast and speed. Yeah, it's fun. And it's like, if you leave at the same time, it's almost like it is a race, right? It's someone's issued the challenge. Can you do it? But we decided when we started this journey, the majority of the time you spend at anchor or in a marina, or when, you know, if you're getting done. And he said, you know, do we, at this point in our lives, do we want comfort, or is the whole purpose to get there quicker? And we're like, no, the whole purpose of this journey is to slow life down a little bit and to 100%. Get away from the rat race.
Yeah. So tell us some of the things, you know, folks are here probably echoing your dream, if not around the world, at least the East Coast, Bahamas, you know, other parts of the world. What are some of the things that have been, you have now the idea of what you think you need, and now you're actually doing it. So what are the things that have been actually helpful to sail around the world?
Yeah, I think, you know, I say proper anchor and chain, which might sound like an obvious thing, but you'd be surprised at how many people we hear out here who have dragged their anchor. I mean, it's just a very common, for whatever reason, drag. We have an ultra anchor. I'm not certainly promoting them or anything. It just happens to be an anchor that always sticks for us. But more importantly is your chain. You know, in the South Pacific, you need at least 300 feet. We have 330 feet plus another 100 feet of road on that. But you know, if you go to Easter Island, or if you get stuck on the secondary anchorage at Fatuhiva, I mean, those are deep anchors. We've anchored in 80, 90 feet of water. You know, so there are absolutely some deep anchors out there. And if you think about a, you know, 4-to-1, 5-to-1 scope, you know, the typical chain that you get in the Caribbean is not going to be enough. You know, you really have to think about that when you're setting it up. I can't imagine sailing the South Pacific without some type of spinnaker sail. You know, we have a parasailer. We absolutely love the performance of it.
Yes.
And the comfort of it is just been fantastic. Starlink, you know, I think we have a love-hate relationship with Starlink. We love it for the weather. We love it for you know, routing and you know, all the, you know, the safety features and communicating with family back home. I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later too, but we do hate it also and we need it for homeschool and stuff like that. But we hate it because it's easy to fall into the trap of, you know, surfing, you know, the internet, right? And that's absolutely, we wanted to get away from that, right? And so something that we are constantly trying to get better disciplined in as well. You know, enough solar and lithium batteries. You know, we have about 2,000 watts of solar, and we have 1,200 amp hours to lithium. You know, if you guys are in the process of building your boats, there are people like David Pullen just had on the Leopard 45 group that have done some just amazing things building their boat when it comes to their solar and lithium. And so, you know, certainly ask the right people as you get into building your boat and thinking about what you're going to do. You know, tools, you know, it's an obvious one, but in the Caribbean, you can get most boats fixed anywhere. You know, and ironically, there's a lot of mooring bases out there, both in BVI and in St. Martin. We had some small issues, and we found a guy at a moorings that, you know, he would come over in his off hours and help fix something for us. So you're not going to find that in the South Pacific nearly as easy. You know, we have some people out here that have lost their rudders, and just some super dramatic things, and they are stuck somewhere for months trying to get stuff fixed. So yeah, you just got to make sure that you've got the right tools and the right spares, etc.
People are willing to lend it too, though. Like if there's a tool that you need for one time, people have said, oh God, if they know we're going to the hardware store, local hardware store, or look at something, oh, here, just use mine. Or we've done the same thing, or sold parts. Someone doesn't have to sit in a location, and then you just hope their Amazon can deliver wherever you're going next to update you again.
In this last statement, this simple, strong, durable appliance, I mean, we put this in there because I think it's important to say, like, it's one thing if you're going to be just sailing on the Caribbean, but once you start to go outside of that, you know, people have like very complex water makers, or they have, you know, a washer and dryer or other things that are super difficult to fix on your own. The most basic water maker you can almost buy from Spectra. There's no digital things at all. I can fix the entire thing myself. We've got all the fittings and everything else. But we know people that lost their water maker and they couldn't fix it and they didn't have it for a month.
On the crossing, on their 30-day, it took them 30 days and they literally lost it as they went across, right?
So you've got to really think about what you're doing, what your intentions are with the boat, and make sure you're planning to keep it simple so that you can fix it if you're planning on doing a around the world thing.
Yep.
Yeah, great advice. The simple is the word that stands out to me there. And I think too, going through the scenarios of, okay, what would happen and what would you do if, while you're in the marina somewhere, is always great. Unplugging the boat, running it as if you're, at an anchorage while you're at the marina, right? Have all the things break there.
Yep.
Two follow-up questions. Zach wants to know, and this is a detailed question about electricity and energy. So you mentioned 2000 watts of solar, 1200-ish amp hours of lithium. Do you can you run the AC overnight on that in both hulls, or what's the limitations there?
We cannot. We have to have a generator going to run our
Okay.
ACs or
But we do.
so I people said this to us as well, and I didn't believe them, but they're like, you're not going to use your ACs after a while. And honestly, it's kind of true. Yeah, we haven't, since we've really left Panama. I mean, there's been a couple occasions when we've been in marinas and the air's been super still. We were plugged to shore power, but when we're out right, on Anchorage, it's you're sailing in the winter time in the South Pacific, right? And so it's super cool down here right now. It's in the 70s over at night. So it's super comfortable. But to answer his question more specifically, I mean, you can get 12-volt ACs that you can run with a proper setup. You just have to make sure that when you're building the boat or when you're buying it, that you have to set it up so that your electricity can run the ACs. I would absolutely encourage like the 12-volt ones. I know people that have enough solar and amp hours of storage that they have soft starts on their batteries that can run one of these for probably 4 or 5 hours, but it's all on how you set it up at the beginning.
I had mine, the whole boat was inverted with like two big inverters, and I could run both ACs and all that, and it was great. That what I didn't realize is that the overhead just to keep those inverters on, because they had enough through to do the whole, it was a lot of power just to keep them both on. And knowing what I know now, I would have probably rethought that. The other piece that I did that someone shared with me is there's a company called, and I'm sure there are other companies that make it, but and this is not an endorsement, but Sleep 8, they make mattresses and they make mattress covers, and they're basically water cooled and water heated. So there's this little box that sits like next to the bed, and it actually cools down the mattress with cool water, or it heats it up. So that used a lot less energy than running the electricity, and it kept the bed cool. Anyway, for those instances where the temperature got a little uncomfortable.
There have been nights that we've had to turn the air on, and you said it used insignificant fuel, right? For the generator.
Yeah. I mean, it just depends on the load.
It was just
it depends on the load, but I mean, if we're, I mean, gas, fuel is certainly a consideration on these long trips, right? Where you don't necessarily know when you're gonna be able to get fuel again, because sometimes these islands run out of fuel. And if you're not conserving your fuel, you're going to be waiting a long time for a fuel truck sometimes or a fuel boat to arrive. So we try to avoid running our generator when we're not certain where our next fuel stop is. So
yeah, smart. Two quick questions, then I want to switch over to some of the resources that you all use to make international travel in a boat a little easier. First one's from Harold. What country is your cat registered in? Is it U.S. Coast Guard registered in the U.S.
It is. Yes. Yep.
Okay. And then the second question is the voltage on your boat and frequency. So are you 120, 60 hertz, 240, 60 hertz? Are
Yeah,
you in the
yeah,
world of, yeah.
it's 12 volt, 120. Yeah.
So 120 volts, 60 hertz. How do you guys manage? I think the power in some of the islands that you're at is 50 hertz, like the frequency is different.
Yeah, it's certainly an issue if you're going to be in the marinas.
Yeah.
You're going to have to either run the generator or, I mean, honestly, the only times we were in a marina in Tahiti because we were having our sail fixed on our parasailer. It had a small hole in it.
Our outboard.
And our
Engine.
outboard engine was had an issue with it, but you know, I would say 99% of the time we're not in a marina in the South Pacific. You know, so when we
Yeah.
get to Australia or New Zealand, we're gonna use that to store the boat and go home for a couple months for the holidays. You know, and so the amount of power it's going to use while we're gone, and should the solar and battery should be able to keep up with it if we decide to do it that way, or we may just completely shut it down and put it on the hard or something. But
Yeah.
I on our first boat we had it built in for both international as well as U.S. power, and you can certainly do that if you're building a new boat. But if our boat was used one time by one owner, and it was just built for the 120 volt, but we so far it hasn't been the issue. I thought it was. Yeah, maybe more in the Mediterranean, as where marinas are more plentiful, but we haven't seen it in the South Pacific yet.
Yeah, it's boats. I had this observation that it's actually less expensive to use your boat, right? Because keeping it at a marina versus out sailing it at anchorages for free. So this is one of those things. Just go use the boat and you won't have to worry about it. Versus keeping it at a marina.
Yeah.
Tell us about some of the things on this slide. I learned a bit going through this when we were talking the other day, but what things do you use to make this a little bit easier?
So yeah, we get I had stage 4 cancer 6 years ago, and so I have certain medicines that I need to get. And so you can get most prescriptions internationally. In Galapagos, you didn't even need a prescription. You would just go walk into a pharmacy and, say I need an antibiotic or any whatever, and you could get most things. In Tahiti, you need certainly a doctor's prescription, but those are easy to get. You just walk into a doctor, and I know one of the doctors, just his common question is, are there any other prescriptions you need? And he'll write the prescription for you. And so we do keep insurance back home because of my major medical needs. But for most minor stuff, it's super cheap to go to a local doctor. I had what we thought was appendicitis in Dominican Republic, and turned out to be just food poisoning. But we went to the hospital and did a CT scan and a bunch of other stuff, and ER, it was an overnight visit and all that kind of stuff. And I think the total was like $400 or something like that. It was
right.
It was crazy cheap. So so we for most stuff you can just manage locally, and most places have really good doctors unless you're like super remote. But so I think that's fine. And so I would just encourage people to keep whatever insurance needs you have for your issues back home if you need it, but I wouldn't spend the money flying back home unless it's a major medical issue. So
we have our mail sent to my mom's house, and she goes through it for us. There are a lot of different mail services people use that we talk to other sailors, but we have ours sent there, and she'll manage certain things for us, send us pictures of what we need. When we have people come to visit, or other sailboats have people come to visit, they'll send a message out on a WhatsApp group and say, hey, does anybody need anything? A friend's coming, has extra room in their bag. And I don't feel like people abuse it, right?
No.
Like I could fill up that bag easily because there's so many things on Amazon we need right now and just can't get access to. But it's amazing. We even had friends that inverter went bad, and there was a gentleman leaving the next day, a cruiser, and he said, hey, an inverter, how much does that even weigh? It's
80
not
pounds.
It's 80 pounds. And he said, hey, I'll take it, you pay for the extra bag. And he was like, I'll schlep it back to the US for you. And I was like, whoa. I mean, because that's an inconvenience to somebody to have to get through an
Yep.
airport. People realize that you give up a lot of creature comforts to be out here, and that you just don't have access to things we take for granted when you're at home. And so that's a nice thing that we're able to do. So we're able to keep our get the things that we need, so that any accounts that we have back home or mail or things that need to be paid don't sit dormant for a long period of time.
By the way, there's a lot of freight forwarders. Like if you're in Panama, you can get Amazon stuff sent to you in Panama to like, I mean, Amazon has Costco-like clubs where you can get most stuff too. But if you need something specific from Amazon,
you do pay a premium fee.
Yeah, but you can get it certainly in Fiji. We understand is another place that you can get freight forwarded from Amazon as well. You just have to set it up ahead of time. One of the great resources is WhatsApp groups. If you've got kids on board, and even if you don't, there's all kinds of WhatsApp groups specific for your journey. Like we have the Coconut Milk Run, which is what this journey from Panama into the South Pacific is called. You have going to Tonga, going to Fiji, going to Australia, there's kids groups, and they're just hugely helpful and great resources to have. And you can just put a text out there and say, hey, does somebody have this? Or somebody going there can give you some feedback on it. What's a good anchorage, et cetera. And then there's rallies like the Pacific Posse that we joined, which have great discounts and just it's a tight-knit group of super informative people. We talked about Starlink already, in terms of Landon's homeschooling, which was just critical for us, and the safety, weather routing, everything else. And our families, they want to hear from us from time to time, make sure we're safe and everything. And so it's good to have it for that. But again, we just think if everybody needs to manage their time better, I guess, online when it comes to being out here, because it can be such a huge distraction from the whole intention, why you came out here. So.
We do have our social media accounts, though, and we try to keep those active because it's a quick way, instead of having to send out little texts and emails to family and friends. If we're able just to post what we're doing and pictures and videos, people love to do. I mean, David's mom is 91 and she knows she'll never make it to most of these, any of these places really, but she's so cute. She logs in and checks out everywhere we go. And we have friends that have kids at home that are using it for either homeschool or for a field trip, so to speak, like a virtual. So that is where it's become valuable to us, is in documenting our journey. We also want to do that for Landon, so that when she grows up, she's got a record of where she's been.
And by the way, on the WhatsApp groups, a lot of people go, well, how do I know how do I find these groups? They'll actually find you just about. And what I mean by that is you're going to meet somebody at dinner, at the bar, at their boat next to you, that's going to say, hey, are you on this group? So a great question to ask people is, what groups are you on that I need to know about, right?
Well, we literally had a lady stop us at the dinghy dock just yesterday, and she said, I don't know how she found out our boat's name was Warrior, but she said, oh my gosh, back in the Marquesas, so we're talking 2 months ago, she said, I took a picture of you with the most beautiful rainbow behind you, and I knew eventually I would find you. What groups are you on, so that I can reach out and send this picture? And it's such a treasure to have that, because you don't get pictures of your own boat.
On it.
You don't think to do that when you're on it. When you're on the dinghy, usually it's like your car that gets you places. So you're usually going to grocery shop or going. So we thought it was so kind of her, but she's like, I've been waiting because I knew eventually I would run into someone who knew you. I think it was introduction by another sailor is how it happened. And so, that was.
We actually had 2 cool interactions yesterday. That was one. And then this young kid comes knocking on our boat yesterday. He caught the hugest tuna. I mean, it was like, I don't know, 5-6 feet long. I don't know how much weight. And he's like, I don't have enough space in my freezer for all of this. And so he gave us this huge tuna steak. I mean,
we barely had enough room just for the portion that he gave us.
I was like, how much can I pay you? And he's like, no, I don't want anything. It's free. It's just enjoy it. And,
but he went boat to boat. If anybody could use it, it was the coolest thing, because we've never had that happen before, but it was, a free meal. It was so nice.
Yeah, the community piece is really remarkable. And then I think there's the sailing community, and then there's that community within that of Leopard owners and Leopard 45 owners. It's really great. I used to joke and say, oh, I bought a boat in this awesome community. It came with it, which has been incredible. Talk us through a little bit, just maybe a minute or two, in terms of what the plan is next. I'm in my mind highlighting where I'm gonna come meet you guys in this
Totally.
like
Yeah, we
what
Come
does
on.
this look like? But yeah, talk us through what we're looking at here on the side.
Yeah, for sure. So, if you have a fixed plan, you're probably not a sailor. I'll start off saying that. But this is kind of our kind of tentative plan. So we'll go to Bora Bora next. And then from Bora Bora we'll check out of French Polynesia. And there's a small island in between Bora Bora and Tonga called Nui, which is an amazing stopover if the weather is good, but horrible if the winds are too strong. So we'll spend about a month maybe in Tonga, do some kiteboarding. Depending on how long we stay in Tonga, now the plan gets a little more fluid. But if we stay in Tonga too long, then we'll go directly to New Zealand, which is about a 6-day sail south in pretty crappy seas, but it's just the nature of that sail. If we continue on from Tonga in a couple of weeks, then we'll go on to Fiji, do some amazing diving there. Vanuatu. Normally you would go to New Caledonia to Vanuatu, but there's been some civil unrest in New Caledonia, so most people are skipping that at the moment. And into Australia, and then we'll go home for the holidays. The next year, and we plan to spend a month in each Australia, New Zealand. We'll fly over. If we don't sail to New Zealand, we'll fly over and rent a camper van and go see New Zealand that way. But in 2025, we'll go from Australia up to Darwin to Lombok. Christmas Island. We would love to go through the Suez Canal and go into the Mediterranean, but based off of kind of the unrest in the Middle East at the moment,
Yeah.
be something better to avoid at this point. But it could change in a couple of years, so we'll see. But then on to South Africa. So, and then after that, the next year, it's pretty much a few stops before we get back into the Caribbean.
I love it. I once heard someone describe what you're going through as your intentions to go places, right? Because it's not fully baked,
Yep.
things change, which I thought was a good way to think of it. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about just what the whole education, remote homeschool, having having a young adult on the boat, what that's like, and not only for you as parents, but what it's been like for them as well.
That's been trickier for Landon. She's kind of at this age. We run into a lot of kid boats, so a lot of younger kids. She's not found really any teen boats. But it is funny how you will alter your plan also based on the dynamics of another boat, the family dynamics. And so there's been times that we've hung with people and changed our plan really so that she could have a little bit of interaction, because that is something she misses. She just turned 16 a few months ago. So she's at that age where all her friends back home are getting their first job, getting their driver's license, into prom. And she hears that. And although as adults, we look back and think, oh my gosh, you cannot look at a 1-night, 3-hour event. Look what you're living here. There are certain rites of passage that we all got to do, most of us probably. So there's a part of that she feels like she's being left out, even though she loves this, appreciates it, looks forward to every island, researches where we're going so that we have an idea of, culture, what it's like culinarily, what we can expect, all of those kind of things. She does miss that. So there are times that we have changed, but I feel like the further west we're going, we run into even less boats. And so we're trying to address that now and try to find ways for her to be interactive. I think boat kids are awesome. Boat kids can hang with kids of any age, right? Like they're excited to see a 6-year-old, they're excited to see a 19-year-old if they're in the middle, and they make it work. She's an only child, so she's good with adults, because that, even on land, that was kind of her life, right? I mean, she was always with adults, or with adults more, I should say.
Yeah, I would say if you have young kids, you're going to interact with tons of kids boats. I mean, particularly in the Caribbean, but even here in the South Pacific, there are tons of young kid boats. If you have teens, it gets certainly harder to find those boats. I would say join any group you possibly can that has teens connected to it. and figure out when they're going. The year before we went to the South Pacific, there seemed to be tons of team boats in the South Pacific. And so, in a way, I think we made a bit of a mistake assuming that that would be the same for this year. And it unfortunately hasn't been. And so she hasn't had that much of an opportunity. But, you just got to be super flexible with it.
But she looks forward to connecting with groups when we get where we're going. We try to make it fun too. We joined a group called Seakeepers International. And so we do a couple of programs with them, like mapping the ocean floor. And so we use this science. We will drop the big net behind us, trying to collect anything if there is anything. And so we make school more fun, and it can be social too, right? Reaching out with other groups. Yeah. When we scuba dive, we try to learn new things with marine biology. So that's been.
And again, there's all kinds of groups, Kids for Sale.
Naughty Kids.
It's the number 4, SAIL, for sale. Have all kinds of homeschooling guidance and advice. So I think if you're worried about that, I would certainly go there. And what everybody's saying. Every state, every country seems to have slightly different rules and regulations around it. We come from a very friendly Colorado that friendly in terms of homeschooling. Whereas I know we met a group from Sweden that had to give up their journey way early
after 1 year only.
Because of homeschool restriction. They couldn't homeschool. So, so you just have to, you got to figure that out ahead of time, because, they thought that they could get around that and they weren't able to. And so,
I would much rather look back of course, this is, me at 45 saying, oh, I would have loved to say that I had sailed around the world by the time I was 20. So I think it's a cool way to grow up. I'm sure you're gonna have an awesome kid on the other side of it.
Oh yeah,
just from the experience of it all. Give me 60 seconds on how do you guys manage to do this? Like invest in some stocks or some Bitcoin at the right time. Like give us, for folks who are wondering how to do this, what did you guys do?
Yeah, and look, I'm not going to lie. Beth and I have been planning this for 20 years, right? And so we took all of her salary when she was working and put it toward a boat fund, and invested that in the boat fund. I had a good corporate job that got acquired and had, and I was an officer in the company and got, a good payment when I left.
But we sacrifice early on. I mean, his phrase commonly for us was short-term sacrifice for long-term gain. And I'd be like, all of our friends on a Friday night, they're all going out to eat, they're going to a movie, they're going to a concert, whatever, let's go. And he's like, no, we need that to go in the boat fund. And so we were we could have had a lot more and done a lot more, but we thought if we can bank this in 20, we kept saying 20 years, 25 years, which at the time when you're in your 20s seems like forever, really. And then I was like, oh my gosh, those people are half dead anyway. Because when you're young, everybody seems old at like 45, 50. So, but we really stuck to it, right? I mean, we really decided on what nights would have been much easier to go out and not have to go home after working our corporate jobs and cook. We did that and we just kept seeing it grow. And then as it grew, it gave us more motivation to keep, because we knew we needed a big chunk of change. So that's how it started.
Yeah, I would say too, like, if you have the dream, I would say do it sooner than later. Don't wait. We see a bunch of young people out here, sailing, a 20-year-old boat, and doing it on the cheap. And I would say, like, do it when you can. I mean, there's all ways to be able to afford it, I guess, is the message, right? I mean, you don't have to wait until you have, a $1 million boat to get out here. I mean, everybody here that's probably listening and thinking about buying Leopard obviously can probably do that. And there's creative ways to do it. When we're out here, a lot of people say, well, how do you continue to make money, right? So we do affiliate marketing. We have a lot of brands that we promote. And that's worked really well for us. We do some consulting. People want to learn more about sailing, around the world and the South Pacific and setting up their boat. And so we do some of that. I do some consulting in my old profession. Social media brings it in a little bit. I do a lot of investing, and that helps. And we set the boat up in an LLC, and we treat it as a business in what we're doing. So And it is. I mean, it's not, you know, we wouldn't do it if it was, you know, kind of a loophole, but we do it because we do set it up as a business.
Walk us through, give me 30 seconds on advice, and then I'm going to try to get through as many questions as we
All
have
right.
in the queue. Yeah.
So 30 seconds. I would say prepare as much as you can, but don't over prepare. There's a book by Tanya Albee called Maiden Voyage. And, you know, I remember she left New York with very little sailing experience. And the only way she found Bermuda was the AM radio signal would get stronger as she pointed toward Bermuda and further away, and get weaker as she pointed away. And this is before GPS and everything else, right? She had no experience, and 3 years later, she sailed around the world at 18 years old.
Wow.
You know, and so like, don't like, we met so many people that over prepare and they never think they're ready. So like prepare, but don't like over prepare to the point where you never leave, right? The best learning experience is going to be when you get out there and do it yourself. Be realistic. This is not your BVI vacation. You are responsible for the boat, right? You know, and it's dramatically different in both ways. It's dramatically harder, but also far better as well.
Yeah, and we're not going to get through all the questions. So I put the email address, Katie's email address, here on the screen for folks that if we don't answer your question here in the next 60 seconds or so. So we're going to do rapid fire on
right.
this. John wants to know, how large is the inverter on your boat?
How long do we have the inverter? Oh, large. We have a 5,000 Quattro, like
Okay.
Victron.
Perfect. What sources do you use for weather and wind? And all that
We
good
use
stuff?
predict wind mainly, but also windy.
Okay. You mentioned storing the boat for the holidays. Sounds like you're open on if you're going to put it on the hard or not, or leave it in a marina. Is that right?
Yeah, depends on when we get there, but we're going to definitely get our bottom painted, so we are going to get it on the hard. So when we do that, when we get back or not, just depends.
Okay. Thumbs up, thumbs down. How has the performance I know I can't see your thumbs, so you have to tell me. How has the performance stacked up for you overall in the Leopard?
Oh, it's fantastic, right? I mean, it's better than we expected. So, you know, I mean, this is longer than a 30-second response, but I think, you know, like if I had an Outremer or whatever high performance boat, and I got from Galapagos to Marquesas in 13 days, I'll be like, well, and everybody else is talking about their 20 or 30-day journey. I'd be like, well, I don't know. It just feels like cheating. I know it's an exaggeration, of course, but and eventually I would love to get there faster. But right now, I mean, the performance is fantastic for the comfort we get.
Yeah, awesome. All right, we will leave it there. I want to thank you both for taking the time to work on this presentation, share your story, and then walk us through it today, and also being open to share your journey. Really, really appreciate it. And then thank you to all the folks who stayed and listened in. Keep an eye out for the 2-question survey that will pop up, and then keep an eye out for the email that you'll get from Leopard once this is published on the website, so you can rewatch and pull out information.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes.
All right. Fair winds and following seas, but not too much following. Talk to you guys later.
All right.
Great.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.